All right. So I hear y'all want to talk about the final practicum summary report. I'm not worried because I think that all of y'all are going to do great, but I think that y'all just need the reassurance. So do y'all have specific questions before I get into all the parts?
I guess for me, because I just feel like everything is ganging up on us at one time. Will we have most of the information? Like I see where it referred back to the charter, several times. Will we have most of the information we need to really do a good job with getting the document filled out?
You have everything you need up to this point because you have your charter, you have your entire aggregate data workbook with your run charts, you have your baseline data, you have everything. You actually have everything you need by the time you finish this to actually write your Squire narrative. So there's not much else I think that you need. And so I guess the way that for me, because I think a lot of y'all like examples, I have somebody who scored 100% on this last term. And so I guess I'll just screen share so that we can kind of go through that. And we'll go through it like section by section. Let's see. Trying to move everything to the right screen. Okay. Can y'all see that? Do I need to make it bigger?
You can see the upper part of it.
Okay. So, everybody knows, your name, your team members, all that basic stuff. You should have a title. Your title should contain an IOM aim. At this point, everybody should have that already. And then you tell us she really should have had her organization and Frontier Nursing University, but I'm not going to be that picky on a final practicum summary report. And then we go down to the aim. Remember, in your aim statement, that is where you are telling us, your aim, that's where you're telling us what is the aim of your entire project. It has all three of those components. It's got for whom, how much, and by when. And you actually have up to 2 sentences to write down the aim of your project, but hers was enough. Remember, it should also be written in past tense. So the aim of her project was Rapid City Regional will increase the number of circumcision patients who receive appropriate pain management screening and interventions during and after circumcision to 30% by December 1st. Technically, you should not have a date right here. All of y'all, for your end date, you should have within 90 days or something about 90 days. Then we go to the plan changes tested. And this is very appropriate for you to do it this way in a bulleted format. These are your ramps, A, B, C, and D, only you're putting them in the order that they occurred chronologically in your project. So if you did an SBIRT project, you should be presenting these. Screening, brief intervention. So screening is C, brief intervention is B, referral to treatment is D, and then the role of your team is A. And that's how you're going to present every single thing in this whole document, as well as next term when you do your Squire. So use 3 bullet points. Hers she didn't do this in that order, but it makes more sense because what happened is when she actually went to write her paper, she wrote it in all the wrong order. So then she had to go back and redo and find all those little nuances. So if you do it right the first time, it makes it a whole lot easier on you when you actually get into next term. So she had team meetings and huddles. She had a patient decision guide, an intra-op and post-op pain management checklist, and a pain management and intervention log, as well as a flow sheet for her D intervention. And then her predictions, remember, the predictions are the big, broad thing. It's like when you were in planning, at the end of that planning term and you wrote your charter, what did you think? How did you think that your meetings were going to go? How did you think your huddles were going to go? And she tells us nice and succinctly, the team meetings and huddles will increase team morale and therefore participation with the patient decision guide, pain management checklist, and intervention log, blah, 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 blah. Like her first sentence is kind of a run on, but we're not going to go with that, but she pretty much outlined the patient decision guide will help parents to become educated on pain management options and choose a method. The intra-op and post-op checklist, intervention log, and flow sheet will help staff identify infants at high risk, track the interventions, and strive for adequate pain management. So it's a big, broad view. You're not getting into any specifics. There are no guesses in here with any kind of numerical values or percentages.
And that needs to be, those need to be sentences, not bullets.
Those need to be 3 sentences. So that's why some people will combine 2. So you might, it might, and this section very well may not, if you're an expert, it very well may not go in order because maybe you're combining your team engagement and patient engagement, or you're combining your screening with your case management log since it's right care. So whatever you need to do, it's just 3 sentences. And I don't want 3 sentences with 3 semicolons.
Now, does this need to include our barriers as well?
So you don't have to include your barriers. So what your barriers of your charter, what they helped you do was actually anticipate what could possibly go wrong when you actually came into this implementation course. So if you look at your barriers, that's where you could see, okay, so maybe I was predicting that such and such might go wrong, but what really happened was it went the other way. So you don't have to tell me what you thought was gonna go wrong, but from that, you can actually work backwards. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I guess from the instructions that I was reading.
Yeah, it said look at the anticipated barrier section to guide predictions. Yeah.
I think I just read that wrong and I just put the barriers there. So obviously that's something I need to go back and edit.
Okay. Yeah, it's not just the barriers. And then you come up with your run charts for the results section. This is the 4 run charts that you pick are the run charts that really tell the story of your project. They have to be the best, whatever you pick, make those run charts perfect, 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 because these run charts are going to go with you next term. So you don't want to have to keep on going over run charts 1,000,002 times. And then you should have a caption under each run chart that summarizes the result or the lesson or relationship or the reason why something worked in different or didn't work. So she has her team satisfaction charts. One of the things that some of the students have problems with is when they go to convert their run chart pictures over into this document, they lose their annotations. So you need to go back to where you entered PC 741 and it actually had how do you set up run charts, all those videos. I have a little Word document, it might be Google Docs, and it tells you exactly what to do to bring those over. Or you could just mess with it, but it shouldn't be that difficult. And then she tells us weekly team meetings were initiated, then changed to daily huddles, then twice daily, blah, blah, blah. In order to improve team morale, huddles were decreased to twice a week, blah, blah, blah. So she kind of takes us on a journey of her project because she didn't have that much variation actually once she got there, as you can see. But then when you go to this chart, she has, like she tells us, the intra-op and post-op pain management checklist originally included 12 options and was revised. And the graph shows a progression that were provided over the course, but they varied only with the new providers. So something really, really basic and really, really simple. If you have some kind of numerical value that you want to highlight, this is also a great place to put that up in there. It's the thing that if somebody were walking by at a conference and they actually looked at your run chart, what do you want them to see? What, in 2 sentences, what do you want to take away from that run chart? Sometimes it's beneficial to ask somebody who has no knowledge of your project to look at it after you write it, like your husband, your mom, your dad, whoever, your best friend, have somebody else look at that so that they can really say, yes, this makes sense, or no, it doesn't make any sense. So, you do the same thing. Run charts are clean looking. Now we come to the summary of results. This is really good because this actual summary of results can actually almost become your summary section in your Squire narrative. It is one paragraph, 4 sentences that captures your entire project summary format with data. So you're saying, my screening intervention screened X amount of people, or I improved it by 50%. Team huddles were effective in increasing team morale from an average satisfaction of 49% during the first cycle to 99% during the last cycle. And you don't necessarily have to go from first cycle to last cycle, because at this point you have enough data that you can actually summarize this. You can say what is your overall screening percentage now? You have that in your aggregate data charts. If you've continued to do your aggregate data all the way throughout, you know what is the mean percentage of patients seen. I've also seen some students report it as the median, which it's technically not wrong. It's just not as accurate because it's just pretty much the middle number. But you know, she's pretty much telling us how many patients she saw. Any questions so far? No? Okay. And then we go on to the learning section. The learning section is not a repeat of the results section. This is where you're going back to your predictions, way back over here, and you're saying, okay, I thought this was going to be successful. I thought that was going to be successful, blah, blah, blah. So you're going back here, just like you're currently doing on your PDSA workbook, but you're going to say that the shared decision-making tool was an effective way, was an effective way to engage patients, as the majority desire to ensure their infant was receiving the best care possible. So what she thought was going to happen, it actually happened. If it would have been, you know, in her case, she happened to have all these positive outcomes, but if it would have been something different, like you thought that team huddles were going to increase team communication or increase morale, but in fact it didn't, this is where you're going to tell me why it didn't. And then your impact on the system. This is where you're telling us what is the significance at the local level and what you think from your project you would be able to take and generalize in another site. You must have those two elements in there. You have to talk about impact and you have to talk about generalizability. And you have 4 sentences to do this. So she's telling us right from the start, during the 8-week project, 59 infants were screened. Okay, so that is telling us the impact on the system. And then she goes in to tell us that parents perceived their infant's pain was well managed due to providing specific education with the flow sheet and decision guide the parents were given. The project could be generalizable to any population undergoing a painful procedure, requiring adjustment of recommended pain management options, a pain scale that is appropriate for the age of the patient, printed materials, and a willing staff. So she's got all those elements that we need up in there. She's got impact and generalizability. And then we go to the conclusions. And this is where you're going to tell us in 5 sentences, you actually want to go back and look at your aim statement. So what was your aim? If your aim statement was, in this case, it was hers, was to increase the number of circumcision patients who received appropriate pain management screening and interventions during and after circumcision to greater than 30%. You want to say that. Did you actually reach that? So your first sentence is not going to necessarily be an exact repeat. You're going to have some word change in there that lets me know, did you reach it? And then if not, that's why you're going to tell me why you didn't reach it. If you did, that's where you're going to tell me, you know, what made it so that you reached it. How is this sustainable? And are you even going to be able to sustain it? So she's telling us that team huddles will be sustained. Is there an effective way to convey important information to a large group of the team because team members are agreeable and already present for their scheduled shift? So, and many of the changes only required paper, a printer in which to copy the flow sheet, patient decision guide, blah, blah, blah. So some of it seems a little bit repetitive, but it doesn't have to be. It just, I guess it depends on the outcomes of your project and what you need to discuss.
For the
And
sustainability, sorry.
yes,
Do we only have to choose, like she only chose the huddles that would be sustainable. She chose to talk about that. We don't have to talk about are all four parts going to
no,
be sustainable?
no. You can, if everything in your project you are going to sustain, then you can say everything is going to be sustained and you tell me why. In this case, they are not continuing, like they're continuing the huddles. Right now, they're not continuing all of her other interventions, and she didn't write that here, but the reason they're not continuing it is because the hospital is actually put it on hold, and they're actually buying more of these little noise machines that she actually used for this before they continue. And they wanted a set group of people doing it. So
Okay.
if she had the room, she probably would have entered all that in here.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And then the reflections discussion. This is where you have 7 sentences. So woohoo, talk as much as you want. I find that even on Pecha Kucha, this is the section that most people actually split up into 2. They'll do like 1 reflection slide and 1 or 2 discussion slides, because this is where you're telling us what were the successes and barriers. What did you learn? What especially did you learn about the team and how the team played a role in your project? Not just with your project, but even with engagement on whatever concept was lacking, whether it was morale, communication, whatever the case. And this is the only section that you can actually use first person. I think, blah, blah, blah. And that's it. And then, you get people to sign, and that's it. And the only other thing that you do with this is, let's see. I actually have another window open. Let me close this. You take your measurement worksheet, like so, and you add a results column. And that tells us where you're going. So you keep every single other thing that you have. She has her operational definition under her aim right here. She has all of her baselines, all of her goals, and all of the results. So that you can see, okay, this is my baseline. My goal was 80%, and I surpassed my goal. And even if you didn't, I've also seen students where they go, and in the areas that they've surpassed, they actually highlight it. They might change their goal to red, or however you want to do it. You are perfectly fine to do it. But it's really not that difficult. It's really to get you to write and be prepared to go in and write your Squire narrative, because the learning section, the impact on systems, the conclusions, and the reflections and discussions will form the basis of your interpretation section of your Squire. And even if you don't have it completely as you want to on this, I will tell you what you will need to be writing about in your interpretation section. Like, I will write it on this for your feedback, and I will say, print this so that you have it when you go to write your Squire next term.
Now on the worksheet, the measurements worksheet where our goal was, I changed mine throughout the course whenever my goal increased. Is that fine, or should I leave it what it was before? Or does it matter?
It doesn't matter. If you leave it where it was before, when you talk about it, you're going to just explain that your goal was surpassed, so you kept raising it. You're going to actually discuss that when you're actually writing your narrative, and you'll even discuss that maybe in your Pecha Kucha. You were surpassing your goal, so you continued to raise it.
Now, who all signs as the learners?
You. I have no idea why they have a gazillion lines, but you are the only learner.
Okay.
Do we actually have to sign it? Because hers didn't have actual signatures.
You can sign your name electronically. The only signature, so you can type it in. Just type in your name, type in a date. And you type in my name in my signature and in the printed, but your actual sponsor should sign it.
So are you our health system? You're our faculty sponsor.
I'm your faculty sponsor.
You said you want us to go ahead and type it in the signature part for you too?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
What other questions do y'all have?
So will we need to print that off to get their signature?
Yes.
And then just scan.
So what I've had students do in the past is, you know, it depends on how involved some of these people at your site are. I've had some people who print just the last page. They get all the signature stuff on one last page and they bring it to their site. Like they bring the whole document, but they print the signature thing on a separate page so that that person can sign it and they can scan it in.
Okay.
Because it's only if that page is signed that I actually assign you a grade.
Okay.
On this assignment. And so once you write this, it's really easy to, I think the easy part is putting pictures on slides. The most difficult part is figuring out what you're going to say in that short period of time. 6 minutes and 40 seconds. Anything over 6 minutes and 40 seconds does not get graded for your Pecha Kucha. But Pecha Kuchas are my actual favorite presentation. So after we present your Pecha, after we actually do everybody's presentation, we'll talk about what you learned, what you didn't learn briefly, and then you get to go because there's not much else to discuss, and then you can like celebrate.
So just to clarify, only one signature has to be on that last page. The rest are electronic.
Yes.
Okay. And the one signature is our sponsor.
Yes. If you want to sign your name, you are perfectly welcome to sign your name.
So my sponsor accidentally signed under the faculty sponsor slot. So
that's okay.
And I just
had that. Just leave it and like you just take a pen or something and mark it and write sponsor, and I'll just sign my name somewhere else and do the same thing.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that's not the first time that's happened.
Thanks.
So that is my very quick overview of the final practicum summary report. It's just really there to help you organize everything so that you can go into next term organized.
Thanks for meeting with us.
No problem. And I don't know if any of y'all got to see any presentations, but they have been really, really good. Oh, Janice went to one. I know Janice did.
I had to see what it was like.
Well, I am going to say that this term is the term that I have seen the absolute best presentations, because even the people who went up there with note cards, nobody used them. They just talked through their project. And so I think it helped to make the people at their site more relaxed so that they would actually answer questions. And so that was a really good thing. I'm really proud of these people. And most of them are done. Like they are finished with Frontier, except they're just waiting for us to grade their items.
How time consuming is next semester going to be?
So it depends. Are you taking health policy with?
Yes.
Yeah, I think most of us are.
Oh, okay.
That doesn't sound good.
It's not that it's difficult. It's that, I don't know, they do this because they're like, oh, well, that class is only worth 2 credits and this class is only worth 2 credits. But what they fail to tell you is both of those classes are writing intensive classes.
That was a lot of work to me in that class. More than a 2-credit course. It took me a lot of time.
Yep. That is like the overall student thing, because you also meet with Dr. Baker. She has lots of scheduled meetings and she likes to meet with you about every single assignment. And so it can be time consuming. And you also have a group project. It's like a group paper. It's a paper and a presentation, correct? Mm-hmm.
Well, I did a lot of work in that class because I was the only one that wasn't doing another class at the same time. So yeah, it was a very time-consuming class.
So you're telling us we need to team up with somebody that's not doing another class?
Probably. I mean, I felt so bad for them that it was my only class, so I felt like I had a little more time to do maybe a little more than the fair share of work. I mean, I didn't do all of it, obviously, but it just seemed like a lot of work that they had to do.
And I don't remember if she assigned our groups or we made them. I think she might have assigned the groups a long time ago when I took it.
I think mine was assigned.
I can't remember.
It's pretty rough taking the nurse as educator because I'm carrying 8 hours.
Ooh, that's a lot.
Mm-hmm. That's why I said I may have a nervous breakdown by Monday.
The other thing about next term, so the thing about 742 is you can truly be done by week 8 if you have your presentation in week 8. So don't forget, everybody should start seeing when your site has a quality improvement meeting or when you can get people together, because your presentation should be held between weeks 8, 9, and 10 of the term. I know somebody already sent me the date of their presentation. It's Nisha. She sent me the date of her presentation already because she was able to get her people to come. She's already working on that list. But the thing about 742, so the first assignment that you do, week 1, you do a sustainability and spread memo. And you have all the tools already. It is just you sitting down and looking at all these sustainability and spread concepts and putting everything together and packaging it nicely for the site in case you leave or you go somewhere else or they ever need to know where you got the tools. So that is due the Sunday of week 1. So you're starting week 2. Everything is still due Sunday night at 11:55 p.m. Then the next week, you literally write your Squire narrative. So you have a week and then you turn it in. It should be probably in tip-top shape, but it's whatever you can do. And then your peer reviews your paper based off the Squire checklist that we give. You are not graded on you're not graded on what your Squire looks like. Your peer will assign you a grade. Like they will say, I think that your paper is 60%, or I think your paper is 85%. But the way that the faculty grade that assignment is we grade it on the quality of your actual review of somebody else. Because it's not constructive if you just say good, 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 when people have half of the stuff in the wrong section. And you have a checklist that's simply right there to guide you. So you're pretty much saying, this is good, but I really don't understand what you were talking about in this section. Or this is good, but you really need to move that up from the available knowledge section to the rationale section. That's the kind of thing that you get on the peer review. So the sustainability and spread memo is worth 12 points. Your Squire peer review is worth 10 points. Then you have a week or 2 to work on it, and then you send it to faculty. And we give you a lot of comments, and we send it back. After you do that, you create, so that one is worth 20 points. Then you create a PowerPoint slide of your final presentation, because it's all based off of your Squire guidelines. So actually, once you write the paper, you pretty much are set for the rest of the term. So we grade that PowerPoint is worth 10 points. Your final copy of your paper is due. It was due this week. So they turned it in on Sunday that just passed. And it's worth 70 points. And your final DNP presentation is worth 50 points. So that's where the majority of the points come in. They all come in at the end. We encourage people to hire a copy editor and get somebody else to read it, because copy editors are only human, so they still make mistakes. But your paper is deemed ungradable if you have more than 6 APA or grammar mistakes. So it pretty much ends up that you get a 0 on your paper. No pressure. Seriously, there's no pressure, because at that point, most people's papers are pretty darn good.
Where do we get that information about who needs to come to our presentation? I saw it briefly at our last hangout.
I thought I emailed it, but I might have emailed it only to some people. I will send it out to everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What percentage of people go on to publish their projects?
So from last term, so not the fall term, so because we're always like a term behind and publishing takes a while. So one of my students who was actually a year ago, she did a project on blood transfusion. She just actually published in the Journal of Critical Care Nursing. As y'all saw, Dr. Jollis and Ann Schaefer published. I think she finished in 2017 and her paper was just published this year. A student that I had in summer, Kevin Brunacini, his paper is going to be published in the Journal of Nurse Practitioners. They accepted his paper for publication. And I was Dr. Collins Foulet's faculty member, and we are working on publishing her paper right now. So it actually depends. Some people don't even want to publish. That's the whole thing about this. Some people have zero interest in publishing, but if you do and you're done, then I help you, and I help you try to figure out which journal is the best journal for you.
Okay.
So that's just my cohort of people. But I also know that there are a couple other people who are publishing. I know Dr. Jollis has another student, Dr. Meyer has one, and Dr. Butler has two. But I think a lot of people, they just like, they're over it. After they finish, they're like, I don't want to look at that paper again. So that's all I have for you.
With the Pecha Kucha presentation, the slide limit, we can add more slides in there. Like for the results slide, I really wanted to do 4, but it said ±3. Does it matter if I have 4 slides for the results?
No, as long as you end up with the 20 slides. So it's whatever you need to make it 20 slides. Now, your Pecha Kucha presentation, even though we say 20 slides, 20 seconds per slide, some people, they get worried about that 6 minute and 40 seconds. So some people want to end their Pecha Kucha in 5 minutes. Okay, that means that you did not tell me enough information, or you talked really, really fast and I could barely understand a word that you were saying because you were going on and you weren't really taking a breath. No, that is not what we want. You should be somewhere between the 6 minutes, probably 6:15 and 6:40. I'm telling you, I love these presentations. I love seeing the pictures and the stories that go along with them. So I learned something about Janice, that she used to work with Sonia, who did a DMP presentation. I also found out that there's a student who's at Gina's clinic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Lori is in mine.
I did not ever realize that until we were in one of the sessions. And
yeah, she's 1 term behind me.
Yep. So good. Did you cut your hair?
Yep.
Looks good.
Thanks for noticing.
It does look nice.
And Gina and I were roommates at Bound.
Oh.
Yeah, and look at, I'm wearing my Check Your Colon shirt today.
Oh, so how's that going?
Good. The team decided they wanted to wear it every Friday through March because it's Colon Cancer Awareness Month.
Well, good. I really like that. So y'all are doing great things. I will say, I think the intervention that does not continue for most people is the case management log, because it's just too time consuming.
Yeah,
I've heard about those.
But you guys are all going to rock it, and make sure that you take your break, because if you're taking policy and dissemination, you're going to be tired. So that's all I have for you.
thank you.
Well, thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Took a lot of stress out of that summary.
Okay, good. Yeah, I don't want you to be stressed out about that summary. It's not anything that you should be stressed out about. You've already done all the work. You should not also be stressed out about PDSA 4 because when I'm grading PDSA 4, I am not going to be that nitpicky person that I was on PDSA 1, 2, and 3. I am pretty much saying, okay, at this point, this person has mastered this or they haven't. That's all I'm looking for.
You're tired too.
I'm tired too. I have 14 students. So that is 14 PDSAs times 4 of them, plus final practicum summary reports, plus I have 8 people in 742 and 7 people. Yeah, I got a lot going on.
Yeah, I feel bad for you having to grade all of that.
So, yeah, y'all are doing great. I have nobody who has a PDSA cycle 5, so thank you.
Good.
Oh, that's great.
Thank
Great
you.
to hear.
Yeah, so y'all all did great.
Well, everybody enjoy your weekend of writing.
Yes, y'all enjoy your weekend of writing. I have charter meetings all weekend. Y'all remember those days? Measurement worksheet?
Oh, yes.
All right.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye. Amanda.